Now, Pakistan lodged an official complaint with the Taliban government in Afghanistan over an attack against one of its military compounds in the country's northwest. 8 soldiers were killed and many more injured. The UN and the United States have expressed concern of late about the rise of extremist and terrorist groups inside Afghanistan following the Taliban's takeover. We're joining us now. Ahmed Qureshi is a Pakistan-based journalist and TV host. Great to see you, Ahmed. Thank you for joining us. This is thought, isn't it, to be the work of the TTP, otherwise known as the Pakistani Taliban. Can you explain to us a bit about this group, which is believed to be responsible for hundreds of deaths in Pakistan?
Exactly, Laura. Good to see you. So basically, we have the Afghan Taliban. The world knows the Afghan Taliban. It started back in the 1990s. The Pakistani Taliban is a fairly newer phenomenon. It began after 9/11 in Pakistan. So these are the Pakistani Taliban. So whereas you have the Afghan Taliban who are in power in Afghanistan, we have this Pakistani Taliban. Now, the Pakistani Taliban basically operated inside Pakistan for years, and they basically attacked Pakistani civilians and Pakistani military and government buildings. Now, after Pakistani anti-terror operations, they escaped into Afghanistan, and now they've pledged allegiance to the Afghan Taliban. And so to speak, they're under protection of the Afghan Taliban de facto government. Obviously, it's an interim government in Afghanistan. And Pakistan is basically asking the Afghan Taliban government, the de facto government, the interim government, to please stop these people or hand them over to Pakistan. Now, the Afghan Taliban says, we can't do this, number one. And number two, if you have a problem with them, they are your citizens, try to deal with them, politically, negotiate, talk. Pakistanis do not want to do that because they're terrorists and they're killing Pakistani soldiers and civilians, so they want to fight them. So it's a very difficult situation between these two countries. And now we've seen over the past couple of years, we've seen an increase in the number of attacks that emanate from inside Afghanistan. And now this attack that happened is a major attack because 10 attackers, all of them were killed eventually, but one of them, actually, Pakistani investigators say they were successful in identifying one of the attackers, and it appears he's based in Afghanistan, and he's an Afghan citizen, as a matter of fact. And so it's a very difficult situation. Now, Pakistan, of course, obviously cannot go beyond what it's doing. It's trying to convince the Afghan Taliban government. There have been some reprisals in terms of the treatment of indirect signaling to the Afghan government that we will not treat your citizens well in Pakistan if you do not take care of our concerns. So there's a lot of tension right now between Kabul and Islamabad. And frankly, there's not much that Pakistan can do right now because, frankly, this is an interim government in Afghanistan. Most of the world does not recognize it, but it's a de facto government. The UN and everybody's dealing with them because, at least they're taking care of security in Afghanistan, so it's not a headache for most of the neighbors of Afghanistan. But Pakistan obviously is not satisfied with that. The United States and other Western partners are supporting Pakistani position, obviously, and are trying to convince the Taliban to do something about the TTP. Let's see where this goes.
Well, the UN and the US, as I said, mentioned this week that they are concerned about the rise of not just Taliban-linked groups, but also ISIS, ISIS-K, Al-Qaeda, all of these terrorist groups. Would you say that Afghanistan is becoming a major terrorist hub again, just as it was back in the 1990s?
We are not yet there, Laura. We're not there yet. But, these are the early signs because, when back in the 1990s, this is how it began. But it was much faster and much lethal back in the 1990s. Right now, it's, yes, there is a concentration. TTP is violent or is conducting violent attacks across the border. Now, the rest of the terror groups are operating or are based inside Afghanistan. They have not yet carried out attacks across from Afghanistan. So, for example, the Afghan Taliban government in Kabul, you'll be surprised to hear this, has a very good relationship right now with China, has a very good relationship with Iran, and with a number of other Central Asian republics. The only country right now, it seems, and also with India, you'd be surprised. The Afghan Taliban have a very, very good relationship with India as well, although they do not share a border. But Pakistan is one country which, again, shares the largest border. These two countries share the largest border, also share a lot of ethnic intersections, but at the same time, don't have a good relationship. And Pakistan is the only place where a group based in Afghanistan is conducting violent attacks. So we're not yet there, the situation back in the 1990s, but it's emerging and it's growing. And you can rest assured, if you have this UN report, you have the US expressing concern, you have Pakistan expressing concern, you can rest assured this spells trouble. This could grow bigger into a huge and a bigger problem into the future. But we're not there yet.
Ahmed, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Ahmed Qureshi there.